This is my presentation for the travel narrative, titled An Ingredient for Happiness. As a Chinese American whose parents were born and raised in the Philippines, I grew up with a mix of three cultures. During my childhood, I visited my relatives in the Philippines once every 3 or so years. Occasionally, we went out, but I never got a good grasp of what life was like for people there other than my family. Oddly enough, I had traveled halfway across the world to spend most of my time confined in my uncle's house. I usually spent that time bored waiting, because my mom went out to sort legal matters or visit her old classmates, and school was in session, so my cousins couldn't play. However, I had never thought about what a privilege it was to have time to waste. This past summer, I finally saw the Philippines I had heard about myself and learned what it means to have the ability to freely choose where to spend my time. The Philippines has a lot of islands. My destination this particular trip is Coron, an archipelago part of the greater municipality of Palawan. Before descent, the plane whizzes over vast green, untouched fields that you can see here. The airport here is so small that there is only one arrival gate and one baggage carousel. At my final destination, I snorkel and glimpse parrotfish and butterfly fish weaving amongst corals and urchins. At dawn, I hear birds chirping and monkeys yowling from the deck of the houseboat I'm staying in. Frankly, I am in the middle of nowhere. However, I don't lament the lack of American comforts here. In fact, it's refreshing how untouched I feel. It's easy to lose count of the days. They feel both long and short with how much I can do in one. It amazes me how many memories I can make in just a single day. A day can be filled with swimming, snorkeling, hiking, kayaking, and just taking in the moments. It doesn't have to be limited by the number of assignments I complete or wasted away by the singular activity of mindless scrolling on Instagram. I aspire to appreciate my time not only in goals and future activities, but pursuits I can undertake in the moment. Ironically, not having free time to spend on my phone is liberating. Life feels so simple. Between adventures, my mom chats with our guide, who I'll call Mark. She periodically pauses to translate for my siblings and I. Mark is 23 and has a 4-year-old kid. His salary is only 300 pesos or $6 a day. The day before, we had given him a 500 peso or $10 tip. He had not been home, an hour away by speedboat, in 6 days and was so overjoyed that he went home. Upon hearing this, I feel sympathetic for him, so I tell my mom we should give him lots of tips because at 23 in the US, someone would have probably just graduated. Unlike me, Mark does not have the luxury to spend his time trivially by laying around all day or fretting about what classes to take. Life there is so different from what I'm used to. Later, my mom and I leave via kayak to give an extra tip to Mark like I had suggested. Mark is grateful and accepts, but tells us that it's not necessary because he considers what we have already given him more than enough. His sentiment moves me because it takes so little for him to be happy. In the Philippines, there are no standards for tips. Despite this, I feel that the service I receive there goes above and beyond anything I experience at home. In America, I perceive a general feeling of money-centric entitlement. Granted, there are complex factors at play like limited job options and minimum wage. I understand that both systems have their downsides, but I can't help but respect the perseverance and genuineness of Filipinos despite the harsh system of poverty they endure. Their attitudes towards everyday life and the simple things humbles me and reminds me to be more appreciative of the small blessings that I consider ordinary parts of my life. Regardless of how different life in the Philippines is, I gain a greater understanding of myself and feel more affirmed in my identity. Although the people I interacted with are not representative of the Philippines as a whole, they still represent a significant proportion of Filipinos. I see firsthand why my mom is so frugal. I also now better understand why people may perceive the Philippines as a place that needs to be saved. However, I think it would do us Americans good to be humbled and consider that Filipinos may be rich in different ways. Most Filipinos may not have the same standard of living we do, but they do know how to make the most of what little they have. I may be biased by my multicultural upbringing, but I still think the power to derive joy from the little things is an admirable quality, no matter your economic background. When I am in the Philippines, I feel as if I am learning about myself. I feel at home seeing people who look like me, seeing aspects of the culture I grew up with, and hearing words from our secret language in America be used ubiquitously. When I am in the Philippines, I feel lost. I see people who look like me, but I don't completely know how to communicate with them. I see unfamiliar aspects of the Filipino way of life and think, wow, I could never live like that. Subsequently, I'll think, how privileged of me. What a privilege it is to have an abundance of time, to find it necessary to kill time, to have the freedom of choice. Yet what a burden it is. Perhaps freedom is an equally or even less influential ingredient for happiness. What else could be just as potent? Simplicity.